Yeah, so the books I've been reading, there's two books. One is called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and the other one is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I should say. So I just wanted to have a quick look and see what other people have been saying about them, because I I think they're very interesting, particularly the Eckhart Tolle one. So let's see what other people have been saying. So he wrote The Power of Now, which is all about being in the present moment, and it takes a lot of teachings from Buddhism and Zen, mindfulness, all that kind of stuff, being present, being in the moment, and the power of that, how liberating that is. And his new book is kind of along the same lines. And I really enjoyed it. I kind of read it alongside the ayahuasca trip I went on, and if you're not up to speed with that, or you're curious to know what happened, go back and check out either yesterday's stream, or I've highlighted it and it's on my Twitch page. It's also on YouTube. So I go into much more detail about my ayahuasca retreat and how that went. So yeah, all these are pretty positive. One of my favourite books, amazing and mind-blowing. A must read if only you have time to rethink what you just read. Excellent, just like other books by Eckhart. Painful to read, force myself to finish. Right, now this is what I'm interested in. Disclaimer. I am not a spiritual person and find the concept of spirituality to be nonsensical. My position, therefore, influenced how I approach Tolle's book. I think it's Tolle or Tolle, however you want to pronounce it. The more you perceive through a mental screen of abstraction and conceptualization, the more lifeless and flat the world around you becomes. That's a quote. Tolle speaks against this, and yet his statement summarizes 98% of the book for me. I agree with Tolle that most people in the world are consumed by ego, myself included. But much of this book made me feel like I was listening to a guy who's done too many drugs at a music festival and tries to sound like the Buddha. It was a painful book that I forced myself to finish. Again, my position is heavily influenced by not being spiritual and should not dissuade anyone from reading this book, although I really think you should consider others with a more grounded author. Diving into Waking Up by Sam Harris. Now I'm quite curious how a neuroscientist approaches the topic of spirituality. Interesting. I mean, the reason I found it useful is because it really addresses the ego and how limiting the ego is. And it's something I've struggled with. In terms of, I suppose to be specific, the way I see the ego as a limitation is, I think there's loads of things I can sort of apply it to, but streaming, for example, there's a lot of mental chatter around that, and it's really just the ego either trying to protect itself or the ego feeling that it's entitled to something that it's not getting. You know, all that kind of stuff, it just kind of lays it on the line and makes you look at the ego with a bit more awareness and, I suppose, compassion. Not necessarily looking at the ego as like, the ego is bad, I need to eradicate it from my experience. You're never going to get rid of it. Although ayahuasca, I came pretty close. But it's always there. It's always kind of running in the background. And I suppose the trick is to just recognize it and be aware of it and give space for it, but not let it dominate you, dominate your thoughts and dominate your behaviors. And recognizing when it comes up, or when there's perhaps a knee-jerk reaction to something someone said, you know, that kind of thing. It spoke to me. Love the book, but my ego hates it. Liking it seems to be a fair compromise. I think this book is better than what Tolle has previously written. A personally enjoy reading his perspective on the ego and the examples of how we act from our ego in everyday lives. However, I'm not able to fully adopt his viewpoints on the ego. I find myself only agreeing to a certain point before I, or my ego, I guess, begins to object. This is it. This is the tricky thing, isn't it? Furthermore, I'm bothered by the idea of losing myself by ridding. I think they mean ridding. Or rimming. Myself of the very characteristics and qualities which made me stand out as a unique individual. Interesting. So this person wants to feel like they're unique and an individual, whereas this book is about unpacking all that and seeing that you are really, the stories we tell ourselves, the labels we put on ourselves, the expectations we put on ourselves to be a certain way, to perform in a certain way, to get somewhere. For me, the whole notion of being an actor, being creative, being introverted, being introspective, all that stuff is not necessarily helpful in the present moment. It's just baggage, and although they might seem like positive characteristics and things that I might feel a sense of pride about, that doesn't mean that they help you. Yeah, it's actually more liberating to go, I don't know who I am. I don't really know what I want. I don't know where I'm going. To come from that place of complete presence and humility is really simple, and it's quite liberating. But it's not really easy or practical sometimes. Like when you have to describe what it is, you have to put a biography on something, who you are, what you do. These are all labels we put on ourselves, and then we have to sort of market ourselves if we want to get somewhere. All that kind of stuff, which is perpetuated by just modern living in the West. Do you know what I mean? So this is a good antidote to that. If you're feeling a bit hemmed in by everything, you've got so much stuff on the go, this book for me is just a way to take a bird's eye view of everything and just go, is this label helping me? Is this goal really what I want? In this moment right now, that thing that I've been really aiming for, is it going to make me happy? All that kind of stuff. Now, when it comes right down to it, I personally do not lose track of the fact that the idea that we have an ego is exactly that, an idea. The existence of a so-called ego cannot really be verified or refused. Yet I can still employ and explore the idea that we have an ego to gain from that perspective without losing myself completely in the idea itself. What do you mean there? The existence of a so-called ego cannot really be verified or refused. Okay. I'm not quite sure what you mean there, but let's carry on. The above is a very important point because this is exactly how far I advocate this book. I've personally read and used Eckhart Tolle books as a way of trying to understand certain areas of characteristics of man, a model, if you will. Therefore, I have gained something from the author's books despite... Right. Don't know what you're talking about. Enlightening, must read. Interesting ideas but hard to read. Makes you think. Makes you think. A lot of good reviews. So yeah, that was a good thing. That was a good thing I took away from it, was the just let go of the idea of who I think I'm supposed to be. And this is something I keep coming back to on these streams, is that this kind of environment of constantly looking for something better, constantly trying to achieve more. The whole industry of self-help or spirituality is kind of wrapped up inseparably from being more, achieving more, getting more. For what? It's like a never-ending treadmill, and the relief really comes from letting go of that. And Alan Watts says this, he puts it really well. Like, why do you want to be better? I'm not sure the context of the rest of what he says, but that really jumped out at me. You know, you go through all this stuff, all these practices, all these spiritual practices or self-help or whatever you want to label it as. And the question, why do you want to be better? Where are you going? Where do you want to go that's not here right now? And so just constantly reminding yourself. That's why meditation has helped me so much. Yeah, it's just getting out of that story of things that we have been, things that we want to fix, and ways that we want to improve. That's not to say self-improvement isn't a worthy pursuit, but there's always room for improvement. And I recognize that I have a tendency to be very hard on myself, very hard on myself. And so this is also a great antidote to that. Amazing, enlightening, very interesting, dispassionate. What are you saying there? I'm always inspired with Tolle, like Stephen Hawking. He demands your full attention, and so in that respect his book demands that you become while you engage with the material. It is not enough to think, but to be full present. I feel at times I am lost, but that is the problem with the mind as it struggles to understand. The essence is to let go and try not to understand. Like a lotus flower, you will evolve from the mud into a beautiful bloom. Tolle gives hope for a new earth. Tolle wills us to understand that destiny is in our hands to create in the now. I'm not sure he shows the way, but he is a good teacher. However, to fully realise his vision requires active engagement, and that's where practice comes in. Tolle shows us that we are not and equally who we are not, and equally who we can be. Just be still and let God work through you. Yeah, I agree. I agree, Francis. I'm washing windows with a man named Francis. Dispassionate. I don't think he meant to say that word. Or her, sorry. Don't think they meant to say that word. Expand your consciousness. The New Earth has been marketed as a self-help book. Yes, which I feel denotes the impact of its importance. Very well said, Liam J. Madden. If you are interested in Eckhart Tolle's teachings, then you may have already read it, or the rather puzzling The Power of Now. I didn't find The Power of Now puzzling. For me, when I tried to stop drinking years ago, maybe 2015, 2014, that was one of the books that opened me up to meditation, getting therapy. It sparked the whole, I suppose it became about just being well and being more okay with myself. And The Power of Now was the starting point for me, and it sparked off a whole interest in that way of thinking. And I suppose it brought me to Taoism, Buddhism, spirituality, all that kind of stuff. It all stems from that, and The Power of Now. It's very simple, but the detail he goes into, do you know what? I can't even remember it now. I just remember it being very impactful. Yeah. It seems to be in a world of its own making, but it is helpful and extremely beautiful and hopeful. I recommend it with massive enthusiasm, and in my opinion, it's possibly the most important book since the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. I've not heard of that. Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. Brings tremendous clarity to accounts of human experience and tremendous and transpersonal perspective. Cool. Let's just read a couple more and then I'll move on to Joe Dispenza, because his is a bit more pseudo-science-y, I would say. But I am enjoying it. I don't mean that to sound like a criticism, but it could be perceived that way. Very enlightening. I'm not one for woo-woo spiritual stuff, neither am I. But I do believe in meditation and mindfulness. Tolle goes off on tangent, can go off on tangents, get bogged down in very heavy esoteric language and repeat the same point over and over. However, if you have the patience and commitment to make it through the book, I do believe his message is very useful. Thank you for coming. You've been very useful. Only be living in the present as much as we can. We can find a peace in life that is lost by wanting and dive travelling to the future or past. So yeah, existing in the past or projecting into the future, that's something I'm sure we can all relate to. Living in past stories and projecting stuff that may or may not happen in the future. There's been a lot of stuff going on with me recently where that has been the struggle. Just having something that's going to happen in the future and really battling with myself, just trying to keep present and keep judgment out of the equation and just allow things to happen of their own accord. So I think that's why this book spoke to me. You sometimes need that outside influence, or to just see someone else's words written down, even though essentially he is saying the same thing. Stay present in the moment and everything will be great. It's something that, let's be frank, Buddhist monks dedicate their entire lives to. Am I right, or am I right? So that's that. I would recommend it. The other one, Joe, let's have a look at what people have got to say about you, Joe No, that's not right. Joe Dispenza. Breaking the Habit. Okay. Similar positive reviews, it seems. Let me just put a little alert. Eckhart Tolle and Joe Dispenza.
Sweet berry wine.
Okay. Just if anyone comes in, they at least they've got an idea of what I'm on about. Free your mind of being yourself. So this is, to me, at a first glance, it seemed very wrapped up in the notion of the laws of attraction, visualizing what you want and allowing it to manifest in your life, which I've mentioned on here before in other videos that I kind of have a lot of mixed feelings about, whether it's a healthy mindset to have that you can achieve anything you want. It's a tricky one to unpack because it kind of dips its toe into cultism or cultish thinking. Like if you adopt a certain set of behaviors, then I don't know. It seems like it's been hijacked in some respects by people who are peddling this false sense of materialism, like you can get what you want if you do these things, and there's, just go on YouTube and type in law of attraction or manifestation, and there'll be hundreds and hundreds of YouTubers all saying the same thing, like, do this meditation and you can get what you want. I did this meditation and manifested within literally seconds. I manifested my dream home, my dream husband, my dream wife, and so there's a bit of hysteria, it seems, from my point of view, around that. And I've met people who are into that kind of thing, and it's like they're not quite there. They're not on the same wavelength. They're off somewhere else, or I don't know. There's something about it which doesn't quite sit right with me. But I also think that what this book kind of unpacks, and this guy Joe Dispenza has been, making some pretty big waves, I think. And I've spoke to a few people that have been to his seminars and things like that, and he, thing here, quantum physics, the quantum field, the idea that we are all energy. Like a fun fact that I found out is that we are mostly made up of space. Let's unpack that. What do I mean? Well, the space between atoms, if we were to sort of zoom out and, say if I was an atom, the next atom in my body would be like on the other side of the room. So in terms of the molecular structure of matter, of what we are, the spaces between atoms makes up 99.99% of our bodies. Let me just say that again because it's pretty mind-blowing. I thought it was anyway. The space between the atoms in our body, that space makes up 99.9% of our bodies. The rest is I don't know, matter, stuff. So when you think about energy and how we can not control, I suppose, we can orchestrate certain energies within our body through meditation, through positive thinking. There's no doubt in my mind that has a direct effect on your behavior, the way you interact with people. Again, oversimplistically, you could just say, well, that's just having a positive mindset. But this, I think I'm about halfway through this book at the moment, and it is really, really delving into the science, I suppose. And I remember speaking to a few people at this ayahuasca retreat, and a few people were saying the same thing, that science is almost, in certain ways, catching up to spirituality. And I think there's a crossover there of cynicism, of woo-woo thinking, spirituality, self-help, and then science, bitch. That's kind of where this guy's coming from. And so you could label it as pseudoscience, but I think there's a lot more to it than that. So let me just read a few of these fucking things. The Greatest Habit You Can Break is the Habit of Being Yourself. It's a great book about your mind, brain imaging, and neuroplasticity, testicles, epigenetics, psychoneuroimmunology, quantum entanglement, neurochemicals, and meditation, the power of the mind. You need to embrace the concept that your subjective mind has an effect on your objective world. The latest research supports, so it's all backed by research, and they've done tests. They've done tests with people. Apparently people who have diseases like cancer have recovered by doing these meditations. That sounds like a wild claim. That's just what he said, all right? I'm just saying what he said. People have healed themselves through doing this kind of work. That's all I'm saying. Your cynicism is entirely all right. The latest research supports the notion that we have the natural ability to change the brain and body by thought alone. In fact, your thoughts have consequences so great they create your reality. An eye-opener, one of the best books I've ever read. Highly recommend. Must read. Brilliant. Brilliant and powerful. Life-changing and easily accessible. Now, I'm listening to it as an audio book. I am finding it pretty easy to follow. It's not too jargonistic. It does it kind of just beds in. I think I've just finished the first part, and that really is about I suppose the notion of meditation, like the thoughts that the old patterns of yourself and how limiting they can be and how embedded they are within the subconscious. So the if you're trying to break a habit by using the same conscious mind, my understanding is that you need to sort of circumvent the conscious mind, which is where the part that meditation plays in this book is so huge, because it's about tapping into the body, the energy, the subconscious field, the quantum field, if you like, and then changing those beliefs that are not just mental patterns, they're also emotional. That's my understanding of it anyway. So that's the part where I'm at with the book. Joe Dispenza really challenges the way you think, how you think, and what you think, and he does it in a way that is accessible and informative. I love this book. If you aren't interested in spirituality and manifestation, this book is still worth the read, as it will help you to face parts of yourself you didn't realise were holding you back. All your opinions and beliefs that you hold so close to you, and let them define you, the good and the bad. He helps you recognise and work through whatever holds you back from stepping into your true power, fully accepting and being yourself. So many of us don't stop to question or identify patterns of behaviour that stunt our growth. He encourages you to become more of an empathetic person too, which is what we need in a society where narcissism is so prevalent. If you don't grasp it straight away, take it slow and read it again. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one to read after Eckhart Tolle, because Eckhart Tolle is really about being present, being non-judgmental in the present moment. And I suppose it uses that as a starting point, but it's about, becoming better. So I don't really know what to do with that. I'm just going to read it anyway. Mixed messages. I mean, am I all right or am I not? Do I need fixing or do I not need fixing? Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Oh, here we go. Oh, sorry, I'm dying. Cool. Let's get the other side of the coin. I was enjoying this book until he references a satirical scientific study in all seriousness on page 18 to argue that prayer or beliefs can impact the past. Oh, yeah. Oh, after 2 minutes of Googling, I fact-checked and the entire study was satire. How am I supposed to trust an author whose bogus studies and whose editors don't fact-check him before works are published? How am I supposed to finish this book when I've now discovered this glaring error in obvious fake science and flawed methodology? Yeah, I did think the same thing when he raised that point. Like, how can you change your past? I suppose what he is inferring is that, or implying, not sure what the difference is. Maybe what he's saying is that if you have a certain, say you've had a relationship, for example, that's ended, and you choose to look back on it as all the negative things that went wrong, all the stuff that so I suppose it's about perception. You could choose to look at that relationship favourably. You can go, right, well, these bits were great. These are what I'm going to carry forward and look for in the future. So when you come to a new relationship, you come at it with a more positive intention, an openness to see the positive in other people and also the differences, but mainly focusing on the good stuff. But if you look at that relationship negatively and go, well, this is what they did wrong, this is how they hurt me, this is how I felt when we broke up, this is how I never ever want to feel again, and you go to your next relationship or potential relationship and you see all the bad shit, then you're just going to attract, those signposts are going to be flagging up left, right and centre. So maybe that's what he's talking about. But he didn't say that. I just said that now. Then. So maybe I would have been better writing that bit of chapter. I read this book on a recommendation, but I can't recommend it. The good. Oh, there's a lot of bad and there's a lot of ugly. Right, we'll just skim through this. Dr. Joe Dispenza has some great quotes like, a memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom. Yes, I liked that as well. And change as a choice instead of a reaction. I'm sure these quotes are, and his desire to help people become better people has helped folks. But I still can't recommend this book. That's because other quotes are closer to Buddhism than realism, and for me as a Christian sound like the serpent talking to Eve. Okay. That's your belief. For example, to be empowered, to be free, to be unlimited, to be creative, to be genius, to be divine, that is who you are. Once you feel this way, memorize this feeling, remember this feeling, this is who you really are. Oh. Right. No, it's not who I am. I am not even close. I'm not divine. If I were, we wouldn't have cancer or cats or ear hair. Right. I thought they said I wouldn't have cancer. I was about to pull away from that and just leave that person alone. Okay, fair enough. This isn't for you. I absolutely respect that. Well, you're not divine with that attitude, are you, Daniel Cooley? You're not divine with that attitude. Joe teaches us that success and joy is within you. Quote, I fear that this so-called recipe for ultimate success in life has just kept us looking outside of ourselves for answers and true happiness, when the real answers and true joy have always been within. So this person really likes the Bible. They say the Bible teaches success and joy comes from God, that deceit is within you. We rely on what Jesus Christ has done for us, but no confidence in the flesh. Oh, I'm not in the mood for you. I'm not in the mood for you. I just switch off when people start quoting the Bible. That's just me. Hey, that's just me. There are also a lot of quotes in the Bible that, when framed in a different way, can be very inspiring. In fact, Eckhart Tolle quotes from the Bible a lot. So maybe this person needs to read... Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter. You do or you don't. Let me just read this. The ugly. This book reminds me of Star Wars. George Lucas has been open about borrowing his Force ideas from Buddhism and Taoism as a way of bringing spiritualism into his movies. Dr. Joe Dispenza has not been so open. However, an overview of the schools he has been connected with helps explain where he is coming from. I believe all the information below came from Dr. Joe's site, Amazon's book site, the school's sites, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I don't know if I would ever have the energy to write a summation of someone's work to this extent. The only review I've left, well, there's been a few. Most of them are bad. What does that tell you? What does that say about me? The only book review I've ever written was about, I think it was called Matt Haig, Reasons to Live, it was called, and it was about depression, and I was at a really low point in my life, and it genuinely made me feel worse, and that's the review I left. This book made me feel worse. because it... In fact, let me see if it's here. Not my review. Matt Haig, Reasons to Stay Alive. There's another book he wrote which I felt was just very hokey and saccharine. Is that the right word? Sorry, I know I'm going off on a tangent here. Excessively sweet or sentimental. Yeah. Get off me. I was hooked right from the beginning of this book. Perfect, relatable, uplifting. No, let's look at the ones. Let's look at the 2%. Excuse me. I felt like half the pages were screenshots from his Twitter. Honestly, after the author being hyped up by friends, I thought I'd give it a go. I read this book in less than half a day. It doesn't have a great structure, and when I finished, I wasn't even sure what to make of it because I just felt like a reflection of somebody else's diary. Oh, it's bleak. Jesus Christ, it's bleak. Unhelpful. Writing this book clearly helped the author confront his depression and anxiety. However, there's very little help for someone suffering themselves. I think this book will mostly appeal to hypochondriacs. Anyway, slight deviation there, but that's the only review I've written for a book. Because I felt like it's called Reasons to Stay Alive, and I genuinely didn't have any after reading that, other than to find a better book that would make me feel better. But hey, you can't please everyone. But he did write another book called The Midnight Library, and again, I didn't like that. I don't like his voice. His voice makes me cringe, as this person says here. While I'm open to a lot of things, having mystics reinterpret quantum mechanics and then start spouting off about the power of prayer can travel backwards through time in order to cure the sick. Right, so he wasn't saying what I was saying. He was saying you can cure the sick in the past. That makes no sense, Joe. To me. I just had to stop reading, return this piece of junk. Maybe it's just me, though. Pseudoscience. I was curious about this book and to read about the integration of the mind and personality. However, after reading about the study by that person that is being cited in this book as evidence that prayer can retroactively affect the health of people who have been sick years ago, I cannot take this book seriously anymore. Libovici himself called this study a joke and non-study. I do not know much about physics, but if all studies have been selected as uncritically as the psychological studies, it is dubious to present this book as scientific. I think I misread that. If you are interested in the connection between the mind, brain, and changing yourself, I could recommend books on cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah, there's definitely a place for that. This is just something a bit different. So if you want something a bit different, give it a go. If not, don't. But out of the two books, I would recommend the Eckhart Tolle one because it's less self-helpy. It's less, it's not really about do this, this, and this, apply this, this, and this, and you will get so and so result. It's just it's a gentle read. I found it was anyway, and especially alongside the ayahuasca retreat that I was on, it was just a nice palate cleanser. It was just very woosah. So that's my review on that, and that's the end of that. And this is the beginning of something else.